What's going on, people? Ras Atiat here in Singapore, and as always, thank you so much for tuning into the Night Out podcast. You guys know what it is. Take inspiration from everything around me: conversations, media, entertainment, lyrics, just random, honestly. And lately, it's been a lot more conversations than media and entertainment, mostly because I'm having an influx of people that are actually finally speaking up. They're actually asking questions, so I feel really good about that. But in the meantime, like the other side of that is I need to make sure I have some answers that are kind of useful and not random. So I've been trying to understand the problem. Like a lot of times to be able to give someone a solution or at least point them in the right direction of what they may be missing so that they feel better about the situation, or so they can reframe the situation and give it a different meaning, is the fact that I need to really understand the situation itself. Understand what it is you're going through, what is it you see, and then I can tell you what I see that, we can put those things together and maybe you get a bigger, clearer picture. For the most part, though, I have a lot of people who want the fairy tale marriage, fairy tale relationship, but they don't want to feel like they're ball and chain tied to somebody, stuck because, you know, you have to be obligated to each other. I don't know what the phrase is, but this is this concept that I need to be needed, but I don't want to be chained down. So that's the whole point of this particular podcast today. I want to talk about that for real because I think you can have the need to be needed without the feeling of being chained down if you understand what that might look like, though. Because for the most part, we see all of these relationships on TV. You see your relationships around you, and they're very codependent toxic. You know what I mean? It's not that each person is toxic by themselves, but their idea of what love should look like is quite outdated. I think it's time for an upgrade. It's time for an update. What do you think? So here's what I'm suggesting. In an ideal relationship, you have your space, I have my space, we have our space together. So 3 different spaces, right? The other thing is I respect you, I trust you, and the minute I don't trust you is when I start to control you, so I don't want to ever be in a situation where I don't trust you. If I have any doubts, the first thing I should do is come to you, not come to everybody and their mother around you. Come to you straight and see if you can answer the question. If you can't answer the question, I have my answer. You know what I mean? But I also know that, and this is, from me back in the day to my siblings, to my family members, friends, social media, entertainment, all of it kind of just branches and radiates out from what I've seen. It seems like in order to feel like you are really loved, you're expecting your spouse to be jealous of where you spend your time, what decisions you make, why you do this, why you don't do that, whatever. There is a lot of emphasis on when we're together, we're happy all the time. But that's not real because there will be external influences and things that happen outside of the relationship itself that will affect you, plus things inside the relationship, right? I think recently I did a podcast about where you spend your time and whether you spend your time on the solution more or on the problem more. So a lot of this comes down to how secure are you in who you are and what you have to offer versus I'm with somebody so they can complete me or they can offer me a service or a product or something that I get at a discount all of a sudden. I mean, I hate I hate to draw this similarity, but when I first started working, I decided I was going to go for work for a company where I already spend money. Because if I already spend money there, that means I'm going to get money to spend money there. But technically, for being a patron and, you know, what is that word? An operator and a user of the product or service, I should get a discount, which means I should get more of my stuff for free because I'm working there already. That was my mentality. And a lot of people get together with people because they need something that the other person has. And they're hoping that, the partnership will be beneficial that way. But it's not always mutually beneficial. So this is why things tend to end up one-sided. Things tend to feel uneven. And one person or another will begin to feel insecure. I've had it both ways. I've had situations where I was insecure and I ran behind the person who felt like they had the freedom to do whatever they wanted, but they felt like I shouldn't have the freedom because they couldn't deal with, you know, fair rules in the relationship. Like he can go out and play softball and hang out with his friends and it's nothing, I should trust him, but I have got to account for where I am and what I'm doing at all times. Now, I've had that a couple times and it didn't feel really good because eventually I felt like I was trapped and that I wasn't allowed to be myself, whereas I felt like he was, there was one set of rules for him and one set of rules for me. So that did not work very well, right? It became a very one-sided relationship, and I felt like I had to report to him at all times. But I've also had the flip side of that, in friendships where I feel really good about who I am. I know what I can offer, and I have no problem walking away at any moment in time because I have nothing to lose. As in, not to say that I'm not invested, but even if I lose whatever it is that I'm afraid to lose, I know I can get it back. You know what I mean? So in those situations, I feel like mother nurturer, like I have to care for the other person, and I feel trapped in the sense that, oh my gosh, now I can't do anything because they depend on me all the time. How do I work around that? And that's similar to parenting. And every time you get into a dynamic with two people, two adults who should be able to fend for themselves individually, separately, when one person feels like they're mothering the other, it's another lopsided dynamic. It's not very pleasant to be around, and you find that the person who is, for lack of a better term, the alpha, or the person who thinks that they are better than the other person, because that's basically how they're treating them. They tend to talk down or demean the other person, put them down as often as possible. And that can come from two places. That can come from an honest, like, okay, you're really not that great and you irritate the shit out of me, but I'm going to do what I have to do and take care of you. And in the meantime, I'm just going to not mince words about it and show you that I don't respect you as a human, right? And the other one is also to put someone down because you see that they have a competent confidence about them, and you're worried that they may one day leave you. So you keep them within your grip, you keep them within your arm's reach, so that you guarantee that they will always be around. You make them need you to the point that if they were to leave, your presence or your absence would really be felt. So I see a lot of those dynamics, and it's kind of freaky to me, but I also know the majority of us run our relationships like that. So here's what happens when you get someone who is able to co-create, right? Is able to securely attach to people, knows what the fuck they're worth, happy to be by themselves, like have spent times with themselves, and they're not afraid of the silence, they're not afraid of the quiet, they are quite comfortable there. You suddenly get this opportunity to talk to people or be around people that you have to respect their time and they have to respect yours because they don't need you. They literally don't need you. They don't need anything outside of their own wit and a couple of resources that aren't physical, human, anything. They can manage on their own, literally. And at that point, I think a lot of people get very insecure and very scared because if you don't need me, how do I know you love me? If you don't need me, how do I know that, this is a real relationship? If you don't need me, why are we even hanging out together? And that's where I think the dynamic or the idea of what love should look like really needs to change. I think that in a love relationship, which, I mean, honestly, all relationships are love relationships. It just depends on how much love we're showing, right? In one of those dynamics, I think it's really important to help the other person understand that while you don't need them, you want them around. You show them with your actions, as in you take your time to get to know who they are, what they like, what they don't like. You take the time to show them little bits and pieces of the fact that you thought of them during the day. Or maybe when someone's love language is a word of affirmation, you send them a text message just to drop them a line, see how they're doing. You thought of them at that moment. Or you see something that reminds you of them and you send them a message just to, throughout the day. If it's, gifts, then you pick up trinkets or you send flowers or food or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's quality time and you know what their favorite things are, and you take the time to spend with those people. But it also means that you have your own life, you have your own space, you know what you want to do with your day. You just kind of work these little bits of love into your day to show the people around you that you really care about them. Maybe it's a good morning text, maybe it's a quick call every so often, maybe it's checking in because you know these people have been sick, you just want to know if they're getting better. Like, you keep them in your mind on purpose, and you show them that, they matter to you. A lot of people, though, feel like they need a reaction every time. A lot of people will goad you into a conversation or an argument, goad you into a situation where they're used to people being jealous because that's their idea of what love should look like. You should be jealous if you're not with me and I'm with somebody else. Like, I don't see how that's helpful, though, because it just perpetuates this codependent cycle where suddenly you feel like you're not enough by yourself, and suddenly you feel like, the confidence that you once had is gone because you're waiting for one specific person to show you that they see what you're worth. And that becomes very destructive and very toxic because you enter into this like weird roller coaster relationship where Sometimes it's really, really good, and then it's followed by really, really bad, and it's just up and down over and over again. And that to me is a waste of energy. It's like you're hemorrhaging energy in all the wrong places. And those relationships are the hardest to leave because you remember the really, really good times when you're thinking about leaving, and you remember the really, really bad times when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, I want to challenge each and every one of you to define love on your own terms. And maybe this goes back to, watch cartoons, watch TV, watch movies, whatever, and write down those moments that you think are so sweet and show you what love looks like, right? Maybe it's, uh, this is so strange, but maybe it's Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind talking to Scarlett O'Hara, saying, you ought to be kissed and often and by someone who knows how. It's him telling her off and telling her that she's being petty and spoiled, and she has the capability to do way more, but she's settling for less because she doesn't want to put in the effort. She's afraid of being on her own. She's afraid of proving that she doesn't need anybody, because to her the idea of being loved was being adored and fawned upon by all the people around her. She needed to be the center of attention, right? So define it for yourself. Write down the things that you think are so beautiful and so exciting, the types of dynamics that you see that make you feel good, that, the ones that you're like, oh man, I wish that would happen to me, that kind of stuff. So write them down and you start to piece together what it is that you think love should look like, right? And understand that when you put that together and try to put it into practice, you're also going to be fighting your nervous system's memory of everything that's ever happened before, which includes sometimes that you tried to create this exact situation before and it kind of backfired and now you're scared to try again. So ideally, you get to create this idea of what love should look like for yourself. Marriage doesn't have to be, you get married, you share assets, you know, build together, but you don't have your own space. Now everything is us instead of me and him and then us. So it's up to you what you define your life as. It's up to you to reject what came before and what everyone else is doing, and kind of define your own normal, because you can, because this is your life. This is your, time spent on earth, and how would you like to spend it? Wouldn't you like it on your own terms? So as much as I would love to be needed and need to be needed, I would rather be respected for what I can bring to the table, and know that you're going to come to me when you need something because you like the way I do things, rather than chasing it down, being afraid it's going to leave, worrying that, I'm not good enough and that's why you left. Just kind of allowing it to flow, allow it to be what it is, and not force it to be anything other than both of us hanging out together because it's an excuse for us to be more happy because we enjoy each other's company. So with that being said, I would love to know what your idea of love is supposed to look like. I've seen so many people who go from a really, really toxic relationship to an easy one, as in like there's not as much strife, there's not as much chaos, and suddenly you're like, okay, but I don't think you love me because before, when I was in a relationship, this is how we fought, and when we fight, it means I care enough to waste my breath on you. But there are better ways to waste your breath too. So these are the things I'm noticing, and I would love to hear what your idea of love looks like, because like I said, feeling that need to be needed is great, but at some point it becomes this idea that, oh my gosh, I know I can fulfill all your needs, but then when do you reciprocate? When do you not be so clingy? When do you not be so needy? And I feel like I'm obligated to do all these things for you instead of doing it because I want to, because it gives me joy to show you love. You know what I mean? So curious, interesting, would love to hear your thoughts. But in the meantime, you guys, show love everywhere as much as possible, because why not, right? We only have this one life. All right, I'll catch y'all later. Bye.